So today, we're going to dive into a sound that began in the fields of the American South and ended up in stadiums all around the world. We're going to trace the story of the blues. And believe me, it is a musical revolution that has shaped more than a century of sound.
All right, but before we jump into the deep end, let's start with a little puzzle. What in the world connects a legendary British rock band, a Chicago blues master, and one of the, well, greatest guitarists of all time? I mean, on the surface, they seem worlds apart, right? But they all share this incredibly powerful musical ancestor, and we're about to find out exactly who that is.
You know, to really get the blues, it helps think of it less like a single genre and more like this huge, sprawling family tree. Or maybe a powerful river with all these little streams feeding into it. We're going to start right at the source and follow that river as it twists and turns its way through history. Okay, so the deepest roots of this musical tree, they go all the way back. We're talking West Africa. The musical traditions that enslaved Africans brought with them to America, those were the very seeds of what would become the blues. These sounds evolved into plantation work songs. And you know those call-and-response field hollers? That's the foundation, the raw emotional heart of the blues vocal style. This is really where the soul of the music was born.
So from those origins, a distinctly American sound started to take shape. Let's head to the rural South, the birthplace of the blues as we know it today, in its rawest and most acoustic form. You know, even in its earliest days, the blues wasn't just one thing. Over in the Mississippi Delta, you had this raw, fiery, super emotional Delta blues. It's often defined by that mournful wail of a slide guitar. And you know what that is, right? It's that sound you get from sliding a glass bottleneck or a piece of metal along the strings. So cool. But then you head over to the East Coast and boom, you get the Piedmont blues. Totally different vibe. It's got this complex finger-picking style, it's bouncy, full of these syncopated, offbeat rhythms that sound a lot like ragtime piano. So you see, two regions, two totally distinct flavors of the same core feeling.
But the blues? Oh, it didn't stay put in the countryside. Not for long. The next chapter in our story follows a huge historical event, the Great Migration. We're talking millions of African Americans moving from the rural South to the big industrial cities up north. And guess what? When the people moved, the music moved with them. And it was about to get its biggest transformation yet.
So as these performers moved north, they ran into a brand new problem, the noise of the city. I mean, how do you get heard in a crowded, rowdy bar? Well, pioneers like the amazing T-Bone Walker started amplifying their guitars way back in the late 1930s. And this little technological leap, fueled by that ongoing migration to cities like Chicago and Detroit all through the 40s and 50s, man, that was the spark that lit a whole new fire. And look, this was about so much more than just being louder. Amplification was a fundamental, game-changing shift. The electric guitar, that wailing amplified harmonica, the driving electric bass. These instruments gave the blues this electrifying power and presence. It could finally command the stage in a noisy club and, pretty soon, the whole world.
And the absolute epicenter of this new electric sound? Chicago. No question. Chicago blues was the music of the industrial city. It was gritty, it was loud, and it was just packed with raw energy. You had artists who'd grown up in the Mississippi Delta, guys like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. They plugged in and created a sound that was harder, heavier, and just the perfect soundtrack for their new urban lives.
And this change wasn't just in the sound, you know? It was in the story the music was telling. As the bluesman Kevin Moore put it so perfectly, the music had to evolve. The lyrics started to shift from all the rural concerns of the past to the brand new realities of city life. We're talking finding a job, paying rent, navigating love and loss in a concrete jungle. The blues was officially modernizing.
Okay, so while Chicago was becoming this absolute powerhouse, the blues was putting down roots all over the country, and each region was adding its own unique ingredients to the mix. Let's take a quick tour, shall we?
Down in Texas, the blues developed this kind of sophisticated swagger. It was infused with all this energy from jazz and swing, and Texas blues featured these complex single-note guitar runs, a style really pioneered by early innovators like the great Blind Lemon Jefferson.
Louisiana was a whole other story, a true musical melting pot. On one hand, you had the lively, piano-driven, jazz-influenced blues of New Orleans. But then you also had the slower, more atmospheric swamp blues from around Baton Rouge, which just soaked up all the sounds of Cajun and Creole music. So fascinating. And then,
As those Texas players started migrating west to California, they created yet another new style, West Coast blues. It's known for its smooth, polished, piano-heavy sound and these really elegant, jazzy guitar solos. It's a much more urbane and well-polished take on the genre. All right, so we've seen the blues born in the rural South, we've seen it get electrified in the northern cities, and then seasoned with all these regional flavors all across America. But the story, it doesn't end there. No way. In its final act, this quintessentially American music crossed an ocean and, well, it basically took over the world.
So, in the 1960s, a bunch of young British musicians discovered records by American blues artists, and they were just completely hooked. They started creating their own version, British blues, and it was this loud, guitar-driven style that launched global superstars. And hey, that right there, that answers our opening question. The Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, they were absolutely obsessed with the Chicago blues of artists like Muddy Waters. They took that sound, cranked it way up, and sold it back to the entire world.
I mean, the legacy of the blues is it's immense. Seriously, think about it. Rock and roll, rhythm and blues, or R&B, southern rock, hard rock, even heavy metal. So much of the music we love today grew from the seeds planted by those early blues pioneers. The DNA of the blues is literally everywhere.
So, from West African spirituals all the way to global stadium anthems, the blues has always been about evolution. It's a living, breathing art form that tells the story of struggle and survival, of joy and of pain. It has shaped more than a century of sound, and really, the only question left is, what's it going to sound like next?